So, reading from Deuteronomy chapter 32, the Song of Moses. And Moses recited the words of this song from beginning to end in the hearing of the whole assembly of Israel. Listen, O heavens, and I will speak. Hear, O earth, the words of my mouth. Let my teaching fall like rain, and my words descend like dew, like showers on new grass, like abundant rain on tender plants. I will proclaim the name of the Lord. O praise the greatness of our God. He is the rock, his works are perfect, and all his ways are just. A faithful God who does no wrong, upright and just is he. They have acted corruptly towards him. To their shame they are no longer his children, but a warped and crooked generation. Is this the way you repay the Lord, O foolish and unwise people? Is he not your Father, your Creator, who made you and formed you? Remember the days of old, consider the past generations. Ask your father, and he will tell you, your elders, and they will explain to you. When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance, when he divided all mankind, he set up boundaries for the people, according to the number of the sons of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob his allotted inheritance. In a desert land he found him, in a barren and howling waste. He shielded him and cared for him. He guarded him as the apple of his eye, like an eagle that stirs up its nest and hovers over its young, that spreads its wings to catch them and carries them on its pinions. The Lord alone led him. No foreign god was with him. He made him ride on the heights of the land and fed him with the fruits of the fields. He nourished him with honey from the rock and with oil from the flinty crag, with curds and milk from herd and flock, and with fattened lambs and goats, with choicest rams of Bashan and the finest kernels of wheat. You drank the foaming blood of the grape. Jeshurun grew fat and kicked. Filled with food, he became heavy and sleek. He abandoned the God who made him and rejected the rock, his saviour. They made him jealous with their foreign gods and angered him with their detestable idols. They sacrificed to demons which are not God, gods they had not known, gods that recently appeared, gods your fathers did not fear. You deserted the rock who fathered you. You forgot the God who gave you birth. The Lord saw this and rejected them because he was angered by his sons and daughters. I will hide my face from them, he said, and see what their end will be. For they are a perverse generation, children who are unfaithful. They made me jealous by what is no God and angered me with their worthless idols. I will make them envious by those who are not a people. I will make them angry by a nation that has no understanding. For a fire has been kindled by my wrath, one that burns to the realm of death below. It will devour the earth and its harvests and set afire the foundations of the mountains. I will heap calamities upon them and spend my arrows against them. I will send wasting famine against them, consuming pestilence and deadly plague. I will send against them the fangs of wild beasts, the venom of vipers that glide in the dust. In the street the sword will make them childless, in their homes terror will reign. Young men and women will perish, infants and grey-haired men. I said I would scatter them and blot out their memory from mankind, but I dreaded the taunt of the enemy, lest the adversary misunderstand and say, our hand has triumphed, the Lord has not done all this. They are a nation without sense, there is no discernment in them. If only they were wise and would understand this and discern what their end will be. How could one man chase 1,000 or two put 10,000 to flight, unless their rock had sold them, unless the Lord had given them up. For their rock is not like our rock, as even our enemies concede. Their vine comes from the vine of Sodom, and from the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are filled with poison, and their clusters with bitterness. Their wine is the venom of serpent, the deadly poison of cobras. Have I not kept this in reserve, and sealed it in my vaults? 'Tis mine to avenge, I will repay. In due time their foot will slip, their day of disaster is near, and their doom rushes upon them. The Lord will judge his people and have compassion on his servants when he sees their strength is gone. No one is left, slave or free. He will say, now where are their gods? The rock they took refuge in, the gods who ate the fat of their sacrifices, drank the wine of their drink offerings. Let them rise up to help you. Let them give you shelter. See now that I myself am he. There is no God beside me. I put to death and I bring to life. I have wounded and I will heal, and no one can deliver out of my hand. I lift my hand to heaven and declare, as surely as I live forever, when I sharpen my flashing sword and my hand grasps it in judgment, I will take vengeance on my adversaries and repay those who hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, while my sword devours flesh, the blood of the slain and the captives, the heads of the enemy leaders. Rejoice, O nations, with his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants. He will take vengeance on his enemies and make atonement for his land and people. Moses came with Joshua son of Nun and spoke all the words of this song in the hearing of the people. When Moses finished reciting all these words to Israel, he said to them, take to heart all the words I have solemnly declared to you this day, so that you may command your children to obey carefully all the words of this law. They are not just idle words for you, they are your life. By them you will live long in the land you are crossing the Jordan to possess. On that same day the Lord told Moses, go up into the Abarim range to Mount Nebo in Moab, across from Jericho, and view Canaan, the land I am giving the Israelites as their own possession. There on the mountain that you have climbed you will die, and be gathered to your people, just as your brother Aaron died on Mount Hor and was gathered to his people. This is because both of you broke faith with me in the presence of the Israelites, at the waters of Meribah Kadesh, in the desert of Zin, and because you did not uphold my holiness among the Israelites. Therefore you will see the land only from a distance. You will not enter the land I am giving to the people of Israel. We all love songs. We have a favourite one that we catch ourselves humming or singing from time to time. Perhaps think of the great hymns, the tunes, the words. How much have you learnt about God from the words of your favourite hymn? Songs are a good way of remembering things, and that's why in chapter 31 God told Moses to write a song so that it would become part of Israel's culture, the words serving to remind them of God and the mistake of their disobedience and its consequences. And that's the song we have here in chapter 32, and we're told in verse 2 what the aim of the song is. It's to promote growth. It will be like rain or dew. It's designed to bring new spiritual life, to bring spiritual refreshment, although it's quite a sad song. It's a song about God and his people, and basically it's saying that God is faithful and God's people aren't. So verses 3 and 4 we hear about what God is like. verses 5 and 6 about what God's people are like. We hear that they're corrupt, they went the wrong way, they were foolish, unwise, they didn't behave like children towards their father. Verses 7 to 9, we hear of what God did for his people. You then get the wonderful verses of 10 to 13, how they were objects of his tender care. He safeguarded them, he protected them, he guided them, he gave them their own land. The song goes on then to describe their disloyalty, idolatry, how it provokes God to jealousy. God's commitment to his honour, the great promise of God's sovereignty by restoring Israel. And finally, as we heard in chapter 31, the people's response is a matter of life and death. But I want us to go back to verse 4. He is the rock, his works are perfect and all his ways are just. A faithful God who does no wrong, upright and just is he. They're words that are familiar to us all. Why? Well, because they're words to a popular chorus, proving the importance of songs and their words to teach us. But as familiar as they are to us, as familiar an idea God as rock is to us, this is the first time it appears in the Bible, and in this chapter it's actually used 5 times. But what does it mean? Well, it's an idea that's getting at God's utter reliability and unshakable trustworthiness. That those who go to him are safe and will be delivered from all attacks. You know, those times when we feel our prayers haven't been heard or answered, or those times when we feel as if we've been left to get on with life in a hostile and uncertain world. Those times when we're looking for peace and can't seem to find it. When perhaps following Christian principles seems to lead to our disadvantage. We're reminded that God is our rock. He is reliable. There's no need to go anywhere else. Why? Well, we read because his work is perfect. A literal translation of the Hebrew used here would read that he is blameless without defect. You see, our knowledge, our abilities may be limited, but his aren't. If we think things aren't going our way, we might be tempted to compromise on our commitment to God. But his way is perfect, we're told. It's the best for us and for others. We read his ways are just. He will protect our rights. You know, those times when we see injustice ruling, or those times when we seem to be at a disadvantage, well, we can be assured that it's only temporary. We'll see that God will honour those who follow him, despite what we see as injustice or unfairness in our world. And how do we know this? Well, because we read that he is a faithful God. And that means he's a God who keeps his promises. You know, our friends, our families might not. They may let us down. But God is faithful, and surely he's the most important factor in our lives. You know, what a great truth this is to take to heart. During our darkest times, when following God may not seem worthwhile, we can cling to God's faithfulness. The verse finishes by saying, who does no wrong, upright and just is he. There can be no doubt about it. God will act in the right way towards us. What a wonderful truth. God as rock, permanent and unchanging, bringing faithfulness and justice to those who obey him. Ascribe greatness to our God the rock. His work is perfect and all his ways are just. A God of faithfulness without injustice. Good and upright is he.